Hey guys, this is Craig, and I'm going to do another vlog today on metal detecting. And this one is about three permissions that I gained and then lost. And the first one was I lived in Alexandria, and next county over is Arlington, and both Alexandria and Arlington were occupied early in the Civil War. Alexandria was the first city that was captured by the Yankees, and so I noticed that Arlington County had a lot of parks and stuff, and I knew right along. I think it was uh, Arlington Ridge Road. There was camps, and I noticed there was some parks along there, and I found out through another guy that I was selling metal detectors, and a guy that bought one mentioned that he'd gotten a permit for Arlington County Parks. So I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And so I applied for one, and I got one. And so I decided the first thing I would do is look see what where the parks were, and I started scouting them out. And the first thing I did was I'd go to the very back of the park so nobody could see me, and start from there and move, and a couple of parks yielded a lot of silver coins and a couple of Civil War bullets. And I got into another one that was right along a street, and there was a bunch of buildings just on the street next to it, and they were all being bulldozed. And some guys told me that they were finding Civil War stuff in that bulldozed area. So another friend of mine, he ended up getting a permit too, and we went up and started hunting that park. And there was like these real thick bushes, and there was one side of the park where there was nothing but 69 caliber round balls, and then on the other side of the park there was nothing but 69 caliber mini balls, which were big giant three ringers that weighed about an ounce and a half, huge bullets. And we dug hundreds of them there. It was almost like they'd thrown piles of them down like they're cartridge boxes or something. And didn't find too many buttons, and no coins, but just a lot of bullets. And then there was another spot. Well, that spot, we ended up going to several parks in Arlington, and one of the last parks I went to was Barcroft Park. There was a big creek that ran along there, and I figured, the soldiers would have probably been along there. And so I was up there one day and metal detected, and then I found a few wheat pennies, a mercury dime, and I found a Civil War bullet. And I was being approached by some people, and they were talking to me, and I was showing them what I found and telling them about the history of the area, and they were pretty interested. And I noticed this guy staring at me, and but he didn't come over or anything, and he looked, and I thought, what the heck is that guy doing? So about half an hour later, I'm down, I'm walking back toward my car, and I get approached by this guy in a park ranger. So the park ranger starts screaming and yelling at me, and what are you doing? And I said, "Hey, quit yelling at me. I got a permit." And he goes, "You got a permit?" And I go, "Yeah, I applied for a permit with Arlington County, and I got one. You want to see it?" So the other guy he wants to see it too. So I said, no, you're not going to see it. Only he needs to see it. And the guy was getting really angry with me. He wanted to see this permit, and I said, no. So I blocked his view with my body. And so the police officer or the park guy was, I could tell he wasn't happy. And I thought, oh man, what's going on here? So after I left, I guess it was about a week later, I get a letter in the mail that permits are no longer, allowed in, metal detecting is no longer allowed in Arlington County parks. And I was like, man, that was that jerk. And so that, one of the good things is one of the best parks we had up there, we'd cleaned out pretty much. So, but there was still, some other parks, and I'd found some stuff in some of the other parks, but that one park was really good. Another permission I got and lost was at Fort Belvoir military base in Fairfax, and my dad was a scientist with the Department of Defense, and he had an office there at the Pentagon and at Fort Belvoir, and he got me a permit to metal detect on at the base. And the base was huge. It had all these World War I and World War II housing projects that had housed the GIs, and there was all these barracks and stuff, old barracks that were kind of like abandoned that they didn't use anymore, and the place was just covered with wheat pennies and silver coins. It was unbelievable. The first day I went into this one school that was, as you came in off of Telegraph Road, there was a school there, and I stopped there, and I dug 3 targets. I dug two silver Washington quarters, and I got my only Benjamin Franklin $50, and 3 targets, and I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So there was a soccer field down below it, and I started hunting around the soccer field, and there was just wheat pennies and silver coins everywhere. And I ended up going on, exploring the base, and I had a couple MPs, come up to me, and they were, going, hey, I don't think you're supposed to be doing this. And so I said, sir, I got a permit. You want to see it? So they said, oh yeah, we want to see it. And so they looked it over, and they go, oh, you're good to go. We didn't know that, they had permits here. And I said, yeah, my dad, is a scientist, and he got me a permit, to hunt here. And so pretty much over about a year period, I explored pretty much all the areas around there, and I dug probably, I don't know, 600 silver coins and all kinds of wheat pennies, all kinds of military badges, and sterling silver, or I don't know if they were sterling silver, but there was silver like lieutenant and captain's insignias, all kinds of, different corps and stuff, signas, pretty cool stuff. And it was getting kind of getting to the point where it was starting to, I've been there a couple years and hadn't, I was starting to have a hard time finding stuff. And so I was up behind this officers' quarters, and they had a volleyball court. And so I started hunting the sand, and I got a loud signal on the first swing, and I dug a walking Liberty $50, and ended up digging about 6 or 7 silver coins and probably about 80 wheat pennies. And and I came back the next day and hunted again there, and I didn't find much. And then I noticed, there was a big field I'd never hunted, and there was like a stadium there too. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad took me there, and they had all the tanks and military vehicles, and I got to ride in a tank when I was a kid. And I thought, man, I bet there's a lot of stuff there. And so I started hunting around, and right off the bat, I realized it had been hunted before because there was hardly any signals. And all of a sudden, I heard this guy yelling at me, and it was this black guy, and it turned out he was an EPA bureaucrat. And so he started, giving me all kinds of crap. And I said, wait a minute, man, I got a permit. I said, I've been coming up here for a couple of years, and I have a permit that allows me to do this. So I showed it to him, and I could tell he wasn't happy at all. So about a week later, I get a letter, and it says that I can't metal detect there anymore. And so let's see, that the last one I lost was I hunted with this guy, and he didn't like to hunt in the woods in the summer, and he wanted to water hunt. And so we ended up we both got Tesoro stingrays. And so we started going out, and one of the first places we went was to up there near Stafford. You can come in off the Potomac, and if you go to I think it's to the north, you go into Botany Bay. And if you hunt along the shore, you can't go out very far before it goes down about 100 feet down. And I'm sure there's stuff down there, way down in the water there, but there was a little place like on a little peninsula, and there was a break area. And I was out there one day, and I was and there was a lot of waves coming in when the tide came in. It came roaring up into that area, and I'd found a a Pennsylvania National Guard button and a engineer button. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody yelling over to me, and it was I think it was 3 police that were there. And so they were, and I said something about I had a permit, and stuff, and they were saying, well, we just wanted to warn you, this water's coming in real fast. And I said, yeah, it's pushing me around a little bit, but it's not too bad. So they all, I showed them the buttons I found. They were like, wow, that's pretty cool. And so then they just left, and they didn't care. And later on, we hooked up with 2 other guys that they had permits, and we were taking boats. And I remember we were going by this little lagoon when we first started down the creek, going down toward the bay. And I told the guys, I said, there's a beach, like little bit of beach there, and it almost looks like there's a colonial house site back behind it in the woods, the way the woods look. And it turned out to be true. And so I jumped up on the beach, and I hunted it. I had a Toltec 100 regular meter machine, and I had the underwater machine. So I started using the Toltec, and I got a signal, and it read like a quarter. And I dug up a classic large scent, really good shape. And I got a signal right next to it, and I dug it was really weird. It was a metal king tut head, and it was painted. And so we came back the next week, and the other guy found a 17, I'm trying to think what the date was, like 1780 something, 2 real. And so I started hunting more toward the creek area, and where the where it came in, and there was like a gravel bar along there, and the tide was coming up, and I got a signal, and I kept digging and digging, and I could feel the gravel just moving and stuff, but I kept getting the signal. I must have scooped probably 30 times, and I finally got it, and I saw a big silver coin cut in half. And so when I got over to the beach, I started looking at it, and it was 1755, and it was had a Lima, Peru. Let's see, was it Lima? Yeah, Lima, Peru mint mark. And a couple weeks later, we were at the club meeting for the Northern Virginia Relic Hunters Club, and there was a guy that was a colonial coin dealer, and he used to come to the club and ask, he'd ask around if anybody'd find any cool coins. And so I actually had about 5 really nice coins, old ones, and so I dropped them in his hand, and his eyes about bugged out of his head, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "I don't think you know what you got." And I go, "Well, tell me." So it turned out this 8 real that was cut in half, it was 1755, was the rarest 8 real that's ever been produced. And so he was like, he goes, he tells me this, and so he goes, "You don't seem upset or anything." And I said, "Well, what could I do about it? I still like the coin." And I said, "I don't really do it for the money. I like it. I do it for the adventure." And so, but anyway, after we started going up into Potomac Creek, all hell broke loose, and some of the people that lived along the creek didn't like it that we were, they'd found a lot of stuff along those creeks. And one guy told me that they found a U.S. buckle that had been turned into a CS buckle when the water blew out. Every once in a while they'd have a blowout, and all the water would, it would be just mud. And I found a spur and a couple Indian head pennies, and there was sporadic stuff there, but not a whole lot. And we were up there the next weekend, and all of a sudden the park rangers come up on boats, and they're yelling and screaming, and you can't do this, and we got permits, and so they started pointing out this one area where supposedly Spanish reals were found, and I said, "Well, we weren't up there. We were just hunting along this, along the shoreline." And so wasn't a week or two, and we lost our permits, for that. So you try to do the right thing, and then you end up getting screwed. So what do you guys think? If you had any permits, really good permits that you've lost, that because it was unfair? All right, give me a couple comments and likes, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.